So we've got Jason Hartman is going to be up here speaking, and he is back here. I'm going to have you all give him a hand. And I can give them a quick little rundown of you, unless you...
Absolutely.
Just a quick, Jason Hartman is the founder and CEO of Platinum Property Investor Network, the Hartman Media Company, and the Jason Hartman Foundation. Starting with very little, Jason, while still in college at the age of 19, embarked on a career in real estate while brokering properties for clients. He was investing in his own portfolio. That's the problem about not having paper. Through creative persistence and hard work, he soon joined the ranks of the top 1% of realtors in the U.S. and in quick succession earned a number of prestigious industry awards and became a young multimillionaire. Jason, thank you very much for showing up here.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
I need to...
No, Dan, you're good.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Go. Got to deal with the technical issues here, folks. So excuse us. There we are. Well, how's everybody doing this morning? Good. As Dan mentioned, my name is Jason Hartman. I'm president of Platinum Properties Investor Network. I've been in the real estate business for over 20 years, and I've done it as a broker, as an agent, but also as an investor, and I've made a lot of money doing both, about the same amount in both things. And I grew up in Los Angeles, and then spent most of my adult life in Orange County in the Irvine, Newport Beach area. And then about 2 years ago, I escaped the Socialist Republic of California, and I moved to Phoenix. And as I crossed the state line, my state income taxes went down by about 35%. But then about, I don't know, 8-10 months later, when the taxes went up here, then I discovered they went down about 70%. So it was even better, right? But anyway, yeah, that's my background. And one of the things we'll talk about today is how income property is the most tax-favored asset in America. And it's funny when I talk about taxes, just because I kind of started off with it, I'll mention something about it now. But when I talk about taxes, you know, people always roll their eyes back and like, you know, get a little bored. Taxation, you know, that's kind of a dry subject. Any CPAs in the room? No accountants, no tax prep people. But I got to tell you something. Taxes are the single largest expense any of us have in our lives. So a very important subject. You know, we'll spend a lot of time shopping around to get a good deal on a new car or a new television set or whatever, or a better deal on an airfare or vacation. But taxes, we really should spend a lot of time there because that's the largest expense we have. I'm not going to talk about tax as a main part of my presentation today, but just wanted to kind of mention that. I host a whole bunch of different podcasts. One of my companies, the Hartman Media Company, is a publisher of podcasts, newsletters, financial newsletters, things like that. And my most popular show is called The Creative Wealth Show. And this is all totally free. It's on iTunes. How many of you are Apple users or iTunes users? So it's on iTunes. You can just type my name, Jason Hartman, in the iTunes store. I've interviewed many famous people on the show: Peter Schiff, Steve Forbes, Harry Dent, a whole bunch of others. And that's a great show. Take advantage of it. We've got over 320 hours of content. It's all completely free there. So I just want to mention that. And then we've got some other shows. If you like travel, we have a show called The Jet Setter Show. If you think the world is coming to an end and the zombie apocalypse is coming up, we have the Holistic Survival Show, and we've got 13 other shows, 16 total. So something for everybody. Just type Jason Hartman in the iTunes store, you'll find him. Well, Ben Bernanke, you know this guy? Yeah. He's recently kind of done a little bit of a turn in his policy, but his idea of economics is this: we can't be out of money, we still have paper left. and you know, that is kind of funny, but think about what it really means to us and how important this is as an investor, whether it be a real estate investor or one of those people who likes to invest in that modern version of organized crime, otherwise known as Wall Street. That is something as well. We really believe you should be a direct investor. and have control over your own portfolio and your own assets. So this issue of printing money, creating money out of thin air, is very, very fundamental. And it impoverishes most people, but it makes real estate investors very, very rich. And it really benefits us. So one of the things I'll touch on as we go over some of my 10 commandments of successful investing is how we can exploit this, how we can kind of game the system, how we can stop worrying and stop complaining and stop feeling really annoyed by the ridiculousness that is going on in Washington, D.C. and with the world in general, and how we can actually benefit from it tremendously. Okay? So that's what we'll go into today. And I used to be an optimist. I am no longer an optimist. In fact, I don't wear any rose-colored glasses anymore. I think we have a ton of problems. So that's my motivational speech. Thank you for coming. But now, instead of being an optimist, I am now just an opportunist. Okay? And, you know, again, when we talk about this, we really can benefit tremendously from what is going on. Look, the country is broke. America is $17 trillion in debt. We have about $120 trillion in what's called unfunded mandates coming at us in the next 20 years with our promises that we've made through Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all these other entitlement programs. And folks, we simply cannot pay for them. There is no way to pay for them except to create more fake money out of thin air and pay our debts that way. But when we do that, it will make most people a lot poorer, yet it will make real estate investors a lot more wealthy. So what we're really here to talk about as real estate investors is how to move from active to passive income as quickly as possible. And you know, I look at that in our financial lives, there are really three major steps that we have. One step is where we start out. We start out as an employee, and maybe we become self-employed. But when we stop working, our income stops. The next step is we become a business owner, like I did back in 1997. I bought a failing real estate company in Irvine. I turned it around. It was very, very difficult. I owned it for 8 years, and in 2005 I sold it to Coldwell Banker. And that was about the most difficult thing I've ever done, is having that business. Now, one of the things we hope for in having our own business is that we'll have a system that creates income for us. But the problem with business and having your own business is that it's so complex and there are so many moving parts that they're always getting out of sync and out of whack, right? How many of you either own your own business now or have owned your own business at some time? Wow, yeah, most of the room. This is the modern world. Everybody's an entrepreneur nowadays. And that's great, a lot of opportunity. And the business is the way that, you know, you can earn your active income. Very few businesses ever become truly passive, okay? And when it comes to investments, just so you know, I don't really think there's any such thing as a passive investment, okay? Even if you are really, really ignorant enough to give your money to some financial advisor at Merrill Lynch or Ameriprise, okay, if you do that, you still better be an active investor in the sense that you better have a lot of knowledge, you better be reading Investors Business Daily or the Wall Street Journal or whatever and keeping up with things, okay? So I don't think there's any totally passive investment, okay? But we try to get as close as we can because the top step, the real success in our financial life comes when we become an investor. And as an investor, instead of having ourselves to create income for us or a system and other people creating income for us, okay, we have an asset that creates income for us. And with the real estate asset, it's particularly nice. Why? Because the rules and customs and laws that surround real estate have been in place for thousands of years. I mean, it's a really simple concept. Renting a property to someone, and you know, they got to abide by certain rules, and you have to abide by certain rules. They're pretty simple rules, okay? But the other thing is there are very few moving parts. I mean, think about it when you look at a real estate investment. How many moving parts are there? Well, there's a physical property. There's maybe a mortgage on the property. There might be a homeowners association, an insurance policy, maybe a property manager, and then there's a tenant. Those are the moving parts, okay? And there's the marketplace in general, of course, that is true of anything. So much simpler, much simpler than this asset And by the way, when you invest in stocks, you're investing in other people's businesses, okay? Businesses you don't control. So you've got another party in there in the way that's skimming all the profits off the top, and we'll talk about that. But this, by far, is my favorite thing, being an investor, okay? Because relatively simple, stable asset. Now, my dog passed away back in November. It was a very sad time for me after 14 years, but I was lucky enough to go to the animal shelter and I found a new puppy. And this is Coco. She's outside, by the way. One of the things the reason I bring this up is because, number one, Coco's quite popular on Facebook. She has her own page, so you can friend her if you like. She has like 85 friends now. But one of the things, one of the girls that I know in my apartment building, she sent me this thing, and I thought it was kind of funny and kind of applies to what we think about as investors in our financial life. And since her name is Coco, this is a Coco Chanel quote, and it says, "The best things in life are free. The second best things are very expensive." And you know, that's kind of true. So this is not all about money, of course, but when we have to think about our financial lives and be responsible with that. What is our typical client, and what does my company do? So we help people invest all over the country. And we have thousands of clients. We have clients who are just starting investors who buy, maybe one property in one city. And we have some investors that buy several dozen properties, or even maybe 60 or 80 properties in several cities around the U.S. And we can help them diversify. We have a nationwide perspective, so we're not attached to any one market. And we'll talk about that a little more. So the commandments. The first one is, thou shalt become educated. Education, obviously very important. Chris mentioned college, and I think college is massively overpriced. It's just unbelievable what's happened. College tuition has increased at a rate that's about 3 or 4 times the inflation rate. It's just absurd what's been going on. The next big bubble in the credit market is the student loan debt bubble, which is now over $1 trillion. Okay? And all of these student loans, by the way, it's the only type of debt that is not dischargeable in bankruptcy. So literally, every student, they never get a second chance. They are a debt slave for life. That debt will be paid. Okay? So become educated, but become educated in the types of things that are realistic, real-world things that can help you in your financial life. Okay? Rather than abstract things. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Have a professional team, including an investment counselor. Now, one of our investment counselors, we have several of them at my company. One of our investment counselors is here with me, and that's Michael Ristow. Raise your hand in the back, that's Michael. So you can meet him out at the booth later today, and he'll be raffling off. This is, by the way, how many of you feel like you never win anything? Yeah, I mean, I kind of win some stuff once in a while, but sometimes you feel like, yeah, I'm not going to enter, what are the chances, right? Well, your chances with our raffle are about as good as you can get, okay? I don't gamble whenever I go to Las Vegas, because I always seem to end up there once a year for some kind of convention or something. Maybe I'll pop down $20. I'm a high roller, yeah. I never get a free room or anything like some people I know. But this contest is pretty awesome. This is our Creating Wealth Home Study course. It's a $300 course. We sell it for $300 all the time. And it's 4 hours of audio and 2 workbooks that come with it. And if you enter the contest outside of the booth with Michael, 51% of you entering will win. So, pretty good odds, right? How do you like that? Okay? So just fill out this little card out there, and Michael will help you with that, okay? So have a team and reduce your responsibilities by being a direct investor. I want to stress the concept of direct investment. That's what we talk about in real estate. Because commandment number 3 is, thou shalt maintain control, okay? And what I mean here is, stop relinquishing our financial future to somebody else. We've got to be responsible. The government is not going to do it for us. Wall Street is not going to do it for us. Both of these 2 entities are just designed to take people's money. That's what they do. They separate people. From their money. Okay. You hear the old saying, "A fool and his money are soon parted." Okay. Well, if you give your money to the government through taxation, you're probably not going to get much of it back. If you give it to Wall Street, the same thing is going to happen. Here's the problem when you're not a direct investor. When you relinquish control to somebody else, you leave yourself susceptible to three major problems. Number one, you might be investing with a crook, okay? Certainly the scandals on Wall Street are numerous, whether it be WorldCom, Global Crossing, Enron, Bernie Madoff, whatever, John Corzine at MF Global. What's interesting too is that people trust resumes. One other thing I really want you to take today is don't trust a resume. Think about it. Bernie Madoff was president of NASDAQ. How much better does your resume get than that? John Corzine was governor of New Jersey. I mean, credibility. Screw credibility, okay? Be a direct investor and control the investment yourself so you don't have to believe in anybody's resume. It's ridiculous, okay? You might be investing with a crook. Second problem, you might be investing with an idiot. And either way, you will lose money, okay? Because the idiot will mismanage your money, the crook will take your money. The third problem is they charge huge management fees for managing the deal. So if they're honest, if they're competent, they take a bunch of money off the top for managing the deal. Now, I'm not making a phone call. We're modern here, so I have the Kindle app on my iPhone. I used to bring a book, but now I travel light. So this is a quote from a book by Lou Dobbs. It's called War on the Middle Class. How many of you like Lou Dobbs? Yeah. Okay. My mom, I like Lou Dobbs a lot. And my mother was saying, Jason, you should really stop following that Lou Dobbs guy. And this was back when he was on CNN, otherwise known as the Communist News Network. And she said, he's really kind of a socialist. And I go, Mom, are you kidding me? You went to Berkeley in the 60s and got a degree in social welfare, and you're telling me Lou Dobbs is a socialist? That's funny. And so anyway, in the book War on the Middle Class, Chapter 2 talks a lot about personal finance and investing in Wall Street. And here's one of the things Lou Dobbs says. He says, the standard rationalization for these astronomical... Oh, wait, this is the problem without a book. It's on good old paper, it's easier. Never mind, back up. Okay. He talks about Wall Street and the high management fees they charge. Okay, and here's what he says. He says, in the past few years, we've seen levels of pay for individual CEOs that are beyond most people's comprehension. Money that sounds like it belongs in a company's revenue column rather than on somebody's paycheck. In 2004, Terry Semel, chairman and CEO of Yahoo, was paid $120 million. Lou Frankfurt, head of Coach, was paid $58 million. Robert Nardelli, who at the time ran Home Depot, was paid $36 million. Ed Zander at Motorola got $32 million, and Meg Whitman of eBay at the time got $26 million. Okay? And then he goes on to say, the standard rationalization for these astronomical salaries by CEOs, their boards of directors, and their consultants, and of course these are all their college buddies and friends, right, are that they are worth it because the companies they run benefit from their leadership and they bring great value to shareholders. How then do they explain the fact that over the past 5 years, the CEOs of AT&T, Bell South, Hewlett-Packard, Home Depot, Lucent, Merck, Pfizer, Safeway, Time Warner, Verizon, and Walmart were paid an aggregate of $865 million. Well, their shareholders lost $640 billion in that exact same time period. Clearly, these CEOs were not being paid for delivering value to those who held stock in their companies. Folks, we have got to stop relinquishing our financial future to other people. We should only put our money into things that we control, directly. Okay? So be a direct investor. All right? And here's another thing I want to say. This could apply to real estate too. In a lot of real estate deals, someone will set up a fund or a partnership. Okay? My late grandmother passed away at 96 years old, and she said something very wise to me many years ago. She said, Jason, the hardest ship to sail is a partnership. That's pretty wise of Granny to say that, okay? Well, in real estate a lot of times, someone will set up a fund or an LLC and say, hey, come and invest in my deal. Well, they're called a general partner most of the time, okay? And there's an old saying that at the beginning of the deal, the general partner has all the experience and they go out and get investors called limited partners, and the limited partners have all the money. And when they get together at the end of the deal, the general partner has all the money and the limited partners have all the experience. Expensive experience, okay? So be a direct investor. Now here's a little funny video that talks about that.
How would you like to make a difference in the life of one needy person? In the time it takes you to watch this ad, more than 1,000 individuals will have lost their livelihood. Like poor Wayne here. Wayne is only 57 years old. His company was wiped out by a typhoon of defaulted subprime mortgages he approved. Today, he can barely afford Napoleon brandy. And every day, he has to walk more than 50 feet to his waiting limo. And now, Wayne may have to give up weekends in Aruba, and maybe even his expensive mistress. Unless you help. For only $3,700 a day, you can ensure that Wayne and CEOs just like him will still get the bonuses they already approved for themselves. That's less than the cost of 1,000 lattes. Without your help, they may have trouble posting bail on the fraud charges they'll almost certainly be facing. Pick up the phone and sponsor an executive today. The money you give won't just save a life. It'll save a lifestyle.
A message from the U.S. Department of the Treasury.
That's exactly what we're doing when we're not a direct investor, folks. So, number 4, use prudent financial planning techniques. What is your investment goal? Is it income? Is it appreciation? Is it tax benefits? What is your risk tolerance? Are you willing to take big risks because you think you can rebuild again, if something goes wrong? Or are you a very conservative investor, or somewhere in between? What is your time horizon? What is your retirement goal? So I think that's a legitimate science that Wall Street talks about. They just don't do it with the right vehicle. Okay. Number 5, thou shalt not gamble. One of our big rules at Platinum Properties Investor Network is the property must make sense the day you buy it or you don't buy it. And what I mean by making sense is it must make sense from a cash flow perspective. Cash flow is very reliable. Appreciation is very unreliable. So don't bet on the future in terms of the property going up in value. Just have it make sense the day you buy it. That's the important thing. It's got to make sense from a cash flow perspective. Now, understand that anything without income or rent is not an investment. It's a speculation. It's a gamble. So if you invest in non-dividend paying stocks, if you invest in gold, silver, any of those metals, total speculation. You are a gambler. Congratulations. If you invest in property in California, for example, where it doesn't cash flow because virtually nothing in California cash flows with a proper amount of financing on it. Okay, I'll talk about the delusion that a lot of investors encounter there. Then you are a speculator. You are a gambler. Now, sometimes gamblers win. I have gambled in terms of property, and I have won. However, a lot of times they don't win. So we say be a prudent investor, invest for cash flow, right? Don't speculate. Staying power is the key to successful investing. How many people know someone who's made money in real estate? Everybody, right? Every hand should go up. Not every hand. How many people know someone who's made money in real estate? Okay, some people just aren't voting. So how many are married? How many are single? How many aren't sure? Not everybody's voting. Okay, so how many of you know someone who's lost money? Sure, yeah. Lately? Last few years? Absolutely. How did they lose money? I don't have time to have you answer that question, so it's going to be kind of rhetorical. Okay, I'll give you the answer. They lost money because they bought a property and they expected something to happen that didn't happen. And that was usually go up in value. Okay? And it didn't cash flow from day one. It's got to cash flow from day one, or you simply don't buy it. The other reason they lost money is divorce. Divorce is expensive. Okay? Now, most people say, well, you know, my spouse got half, and I'm all angry and bitter about it, and all that kind of stuff. That's not exactly usually the problem with divorce. Divorce is one of the biggest destroyers of wealth. because it forces people to liquidate assets at inopportune times. So one of the other lessons I want you to learn is never get a divorce in a down market. You gotta time your divorces. Wait till the market's up and then you split up, okay? Counseling is much cheaper in a down market, right? Investing is not about speculation or gambling. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's the legitimate process of creating value over time. Understand that anything without rent or income is not an investment, it's a speculation. And how do we know what income is? How do we evaluate it? Well, the rule of thumb I use is called the rent-to-value ratio. And it doesn't matter what the mortgage is, it doesn't matter if you're getting money every month or you're not getting any money, because that has to do with how much equity the property has. And that's very deceiving. So don't go by that. Go by, and there's more metrics than this, and Michael has some great flyers outside with the complete pro forma that goes through all the numbers of one of our sample properties, okay? But just as a very quick rule of thumb, okay, every property you buy should have an RV ratio or a rent-to-value ratio of about 1%. So if the property is $1 million, we'll talk Santa Barbara prices, maybe $2 million, we'll say $1 million, it should produce how much? $10,000 a month, 1%. What if the property is $100,000? $1,000 a month, 1%. Really easy. Doesn't matter if you buy it free and clear and you have cash flow coming at you or you don't have cash flow. It's the income versus the values. That's really the key. All of the other things get murky and people start to deceive themselves, okay, and have their equity not working for them, okay? Typical California deal looks like this. $600,000 property, rents for $1,800 a month. That's not good enough. 0.3%. No way. Gotta have 1%. Okay? Diversify. Invest all over the country. We ran this ad several years ago in a magazine, and it was entitled, it was for Southern California people, which is where the company's based and where I'm from. And it said, turn your castle, a person's home is their castle, right? Turn your castle into a kingdom. Okay? Use the equity in that home to invest in other markets that make sense, because the California market just doesn't make sense. Okay? It only makes sense from a speculative angle. Okay? And prices are going up now, but that appreciation is like the siren song. Remember mythology, right? Okay, that's what gets investors into a lot of trouble. I'm just too conservative for that. I've learned my lesson too many times. Okay? Be area agnostic, okay? Don't be attached to any one area. Now, most of the action, by the way, in the country is in the southeastern United States. This is really where people are going. In fact, they're going at a rate of about 10,000 baby boomers a day hitting retirement, okay? Millions and millions of these baby boomers will hit retirement age in the next few years. And, you just don't see them moving north to colder climates. Do you? Right? Say what you want about the South, but that's where people are going. These are right-to-work states. They're business-friendly. This is where the action is. Low cost of living, a lot of natural beauty, a lot of recreational property amenities, and great airports offering access to travel. So there's so many great things. We do a lot of business in several of the Texas cities, in Georgia, the Carolinas. We've done lots of business in Tennessee. We just love these places. Now look, until 1994, I was like a California guy. I always invested and made millions of dollars actually investing, or I should say speculating, in the California markets. But now I have a diversified portfolio of properties all over the country. And that's what I want to suggest that you do. Okay? Number 8, thou shalt borrow to maximize leverage, accelerate wealth creation, and reduce risk. This one's a little counterintuitive for people. As I said, I'm a pretty conservative investor. I'm very risk averse. I've learned my lesson too many times, especially with non-direct investments in Wall Street type things. But I got to ask you a question. When it comes to the concept of debt, okay, on a property, who is more at risk? The person who buys the property with all cash and has no debt on the property, but they do have a perpetual lien on the property called property taxes. Okay, that one never goes away. Maybe a homeowners association. Or is it the person who leverages the property and the lender has put most of the money into the deal?
debt-free.
I said it was counterintuitive. That was a trap. Okay, sorry. I just had to do it. Okay. The person who borrows the money to buy the property has a lot less risk, because think about it. They only put maybe 20% into the deal, and 80% of it is the bank's money. Look, if you don't believe me about this, let me just ask you a question. How many of you, and I know everybody's not voting, how many of you have ever loaned money to a friend or a family member? Who was in control of that transaction? The borrower or the lender? I told you so. Okay? And who's been getting all the bailouts and all the short sales and all the workouts the last few years? People that have the most debt on their properties. Okay? You know who got turned down? The person who had a lot of equity. They didn't get any help. It's totally unfair. Okay? Totally counterintuitive, but that's the way the world works. See, I'm a realist. I told you I'm not an optimist anymore. I'm just an opportunist. Okay? And we've got to work within the system we have and learn how to use that system to our maximum benefit. All right? Here's a good example, by the way. This is in one of Robert Kiyosaki's books. How many of you read any of the Rich Dad books? Great books. They're really good. So this is an example of $10,000 invested in an S&P 500 index fund in 1992, and 10 years later it's worth just over $17,000. Yet that same $10,000 leverage in a real estate deal would buy you a $100,000 property with $90,000 in debt from the bank. And 10 years later, it'd be worth $159,000 almost. Now, you sell the property, say you didn't pay down 1 ounce of principal, and you've got a gain here of about $60,000, and here you've got a gain of about $7,000. So residential real estate outperformed the S&P 500 by almost 800%. Not bad, is it? Okay? Okay, here's another myth about real estate. This one was actually from the Wall Street Journal. And here this is the longest survey I could ever find, by the way. It was from 1926 to 1992. And it said that the title of the article is Dow Industrials, the Dow Jones Index, has been a wise investment choice. Really? Let's see. Okay? Because what they said is they said that the small cap stocks over that big long period went up 12.5%. Dow Jones went up 10%, and then bonds 5.2%, Treasury bills, inflation. Okay? But they said real estate went up at 11.1%. But if you bought real estate leveraged with 20% down, you get a 5-to-1 return ratio on that. So 11.1% is really 55.5%. Okay? Wall Street on its best day loses to real estate on its worst day almost every time. Okay? It's not even close. Because income property has multi-dimensional characteristics that are different from other things. You know, it has appreciation, tax benefits, mortgage pay down by the tenant, something I call inflation-induced debt destruction that is really, really awesome. Let's go into that for just a quick moment. Now, I know you can't read this whole chart. You don't need to. I'll point out the numbers for you. In 1972, 1 year after we went off the gold standard, the rules of the game changed forever. Because in 1972, a dollar was worth a dollar. But by 1984, that same dollar was only worth 40 cents. If you bought the median price house in 1972 for $18,000 and got an 80% mortgage for $14,000, the rate was 7.37%. In my long seminars, I go into this. It takes about a half hour to go over this, okay? So I'm just jumping forward. Look at what happened. By the time you paid that mortgage off in 2001, a dollar was only worth 24 cents. Now, guess what happened here? You borrowed $14,000. You thought you paid back $36,000, but after inflation wiped out the debt and paid off the debt for you, you only really pay back in what's called real dollars, rather than nominal dollars, that name of them, $16,000, and with tax benefits, you really only paid back $12,000 and change. So you thought you were paying 7.37%, but after inflation, you only paid 1.06%. But after tax benefits, you got paid 1.16% to borrow money. This is the hidden wealth creator in real estate that very few people really understand. They think, gosh, my properties went up in value and I got rich. could for you. But you know what really happened behind the scenes? The debt went down in value because of inflation. Now, with the way the government is spending money nowadays, these inflation rates, I say, over the past 3 decades, 4 decades, are going to look like nothing compared to what we have coming. Okay? So you've got to invest for inflation, and I call this technique, it's a mouthful, I call it inflation-induced debt destruction. Say it 10 times fast. Come on. Inflation-induced debt destruction. Okay. Anyway, another principle. Thou shalt only invest where there is universal need. Humans have 3 basic needs. Food, clothing, and... I like shelter pretty well. I like apartment buildings. I like single-family homes. I don't like condos very much, okay, for many reasons. And I like mobile home parks, too. Those are all right. Those are all shelter, okay, all 3 of those. Now, you know, they can outsource all of the call centers to India and the Philippines. Have you called tech support lately? Hello, this is Mike in Bangalore. I can't do that accent very well, but I love it. You know, it's like 3 in the morning when you're talking to them, so be nice. You know, they've had like 3 Red Bulls already. So that, you know, outsourcing those jobs lessens the demand for office space in the United States, okay? What about outsourcing all the manufacturing to China, right? They call China the workshop of the world, right? And this is, you know, largely bad for America in many ways, but good in other ways, okay? Well, that lessens the need for industrial space, okay? So if you invest in industrial property, not so good. If you invest in office property, not so good. Well, what about the internet? Hasn't that really changed the dynamic of shopping a lot? I swear, if they close Amazon.com, if Amazon would go out of business, I'd save like $5,000 a month. It's like an addiction. I just buy something every day. It's terrible. God, I gotta stop doing that. Anyway, that lessens the demand for retail space, for shopping space, okay? The one thing everybody needs, though, at the end of the day is they need a place to sleep. Okay? I mean, Fortune 1000 companies. One of my ex-girlfriends, she works for Dow Chemical. You know where she works? Out of her house. Okay? With a big, giant company. So everybody needs a house at the end of the day. Housing is a universal need. Okay? There's a huge tsunami of renters coming at us. Generation Y is the most debt-laden generation in human history, with about $1 trillion of student loan debt. That means they're probably going to be renting for a long time. They're also the biggest cohort demographically in American history. The baby boomers are about 76 million people. Generation Y, you know, all the kids in their 20s now, 80 million. It's 4 million larger than the baby boomers, okay? So this is a huge demographic. Now, these people, they don't get married at 22 years old anymore. In fact, sometimes they just never get married, all right? So these people are going to be renting for a long, long time. Provide housing to them, be their landlord. Student loan debt over $1 trillion, we talked about that. The banksters, okay? How many of you trust the banksters? The banksters are really being stingy with lending. The banks have a lot of money, and they're not lending it very easily, okay? If you can get a mortgage, consider that a giant asset. What do you want to do with all your assets? You want to use them. You want to deploy them. You want to make them work for you, okay? So don't take that for granted. Use assets you have. Now, banks are being stingy with lending. That means more people are forced to stay in the renter pool. Good for you. You're their landlord. There has been almost no construction over the last 5 years, but it is starting to come back. We're seeing a lot of building now, but that takes some time for that to catch up with the demand, all right? Increasing population. By the way, all of my investment theories go down the drain and do not work if the population declines, okay? So this is why we don't recommend Michigan or Ohio, okay, or states like this where people are leaving. Okay, these are not good places to invest. All you got to do to make sure a place goes down the tubes is get a bunch of corrupt politicians who promise to hand out free stuff to people. Okay, and you'll notice all the businesses just leave. Okay, Michigan is the perfect example. The population is increasing in areas where population is decreasing. It all goes to hell in a handbasket. Okay, general distaste and distrust of homeownership. That's certainly been put into people's head over the last several years. Fannie Mae and FHA are basically insolvent. They're being propped up by the government. And as such, some people have asked, what if Fannie Mae goes out of business? Well, that would probably depress real estate prices, but I don't invest for price, and neither should you. I invest for cash flow. If Fannie Mae goes out of business and it's harder to get a mortgage, more people will be forced into the renter pool. Rent to them. Your rents will go up, all right? So that's actually really good news. Declining FICO scores, so many people have credit problems over the last several years that are going to force them to be renters for a long time, okay? So that's all good for us. Now, thou shalt only invest in tax-favored assets. Remember when I started this morning, I talked about taxes and how they're the single largest expense anybody has in their life, okay? And this is very important because income property is the most tax-favored asset in America. And it's very tax-favored because of one special kind of tax benefit called depreciation. Now, why is depreciation so valuable? Well, depreciation is a tax benefit you don't have to actually pay for. It's beautiful. It's the best tax benefit ever invented. How does it work? Basically, I don't have time to explain how it works, sorry. I'm seeing myself get rushed off stage. But I'll tell you the concept of it, okay? You get what's called a non-cash write-off. You get a huge tax benefit. And you don't have to write a check. You don't have to donate to charity. You don't have to, if you have your own business, a lot of people do, spend more money on your own business. Okay? You get this tax benefit simply for owning property that may be creating positive cash flow and going up in value, yet the IRS still views it as though you're losing money. It is the most beautiful thing ever. A few years ago, I got this check in my mailbox for $109,000, and I'll tell you how it was generated real quick by showing you my tax return. Okay? This is the Schedule E. It's where you list all of your income properties that you own, and this is just the first page of it, the summary page. There were many pages beyond this because I own a lot of properties. But down here, let me just draw your attention to this number that says $524,762. Okay? Why is that number significant? It's over $500,000 because it represents the amount of depreciation that I claimed my properties generated. And that saved me over $138,000 in federal taxes. But I didn't write a check for $524,000. It just happened all behind the scenes. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Okay? Now, not everybody qualifies for this. And if you don't qualify currently, there are some ways you might be able to make yourself qualify. It's a long discussion. On the Creating Wealth podcast, I've interviewed CPAs, tax attorneys that talk about this in great detail. So be sure, after my talk, you go to iTunes or you go to jasonhartman.com. And if you go to iTunes, just type my name in the iTunes store to get the Creating Wealth podcast. It's totally free. You got Harry Dent, Steve Forbes, Peter Schiff, all kinds of famous authors that are just awesome on there that I've interviewed. I want to get Michael Lewis, who wrote The Big Short. I haven't got him yet. But anyway, some great stuff on there, and this is explained in great detail. Okay, over 300 hours of content, 100% free. Okay, so what do? We provide the complete solution for real estate investors through this 5-step process, where we help investors with education and consultation. We have several investment counselors. One of them in the back is Michael Ristow, who's with me today, and he'll be outside at our booth. And all of this is free. We help you analyze your financial situation, decide how much leverage you can and should use to invest in properties. We help you acquire properties all around the country in landlord-friendly markets. That's one thing I haven't mentioned yet. California and New York are the two most landlord-unfriendly markets in the country. Okay? If you have a tenant who decides they don't want to pay and they don't want to leave, and you're in the Socialist Republic of California, you're going to have a problem, especially if they know how to work the system. Okay? If you're in Texas, they're going to be out of there in 3 weeks. Don't mess with Texas. That's their saying, okay? You know what they have in Texas? They have the famous midnight move out. Your tenants just know they're going to be out of there in no time, so they just move out at midnight. Okay? They're like embarrassed. So you get paid in these places, okay? Because the whole legal climate is friendly to landlords. That's the kind of place we want to invest, okay? Texas, Georgia, the Carolinas, Missouri. We do a lot of business in Missouri. That's one area in the north that we really like a lot. And so, Indianapolis, that's been another huge market for us. And in these markets, one of the things we really do is, it's really step 4, okay? Maintenance, management, and monitoring of your portfolio. See, you might come to us and say, hey, I want to buy 3 properties. And that might take, $60,000 to buy 3 properties, just as an example, okay? And you'll buy maybe 1 property in Atlanta, another one in Houston, okay, and another one in Indianapolis, for example. It might be anywhere. And this depends on your risk tolerance, your time horizon, your investment goals, and that's what we help you analyze. That's step 2. And so you might do that, and you're not a big customer for that property manager because you've just got 1 account, right? If they've got 200-300 accounts of properties they manage, how much attention are they going to pay to 1 account? Is it a big deal if you leave and get another manager? Nah, it's not a big deal. But we bring them hundreds of accounts. My company does. And so if you have a problem with your property manager or any of our service providers, we call them local market specialists, or LMS for short. If you have a problem with any of these providers, you call or email your investment counselor at my company, and we will call or email them. And when we say jump, they say how high. Okay, it's a huge difference. We provide a lot of leverage through really kind of our group buying power. It's kind of like Costco or Walmart or that kind of idea. Okay, so we help you with the maintenance management and monitoring of your portfolio and the overall goal of wealth accumulation and preservation. And that's what we do. We provide the complete solution for real estate investors. And I think I got to get off here, so let me just move ahead here to my final slide. Okay. By the way, this is usually a full-day seminar. Like we have a property tour coming up in Austin. We have a property tour coming up in Austin, Texas, and with that, we spend 9 hours doing all of this stuff. Okay, so it's a long day. All right, and I'll be happy to take questions outside if you've got some questions because I've just got to wrap up here. What I do want to wrap up with is a great little poem. Okay, and just so you don't see it, I'll unplug the projector. How's that? Okay. And I will just share it with you myself. But this is what's great about this little poem. It's called "The Reluctant Investor's Lament." Okay, and we've all heard that thing: coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? You don't want to be that person saying coulda, shoulda, woulda. You want to be a person who seizes opportunity and isn't the person who has a story but has wealth. Okay. And what's really interesting about this this little poem that's really cute is that it was written back in 1977. Was the real estate more or less expensive back in 1977 than it is today? Less, right? Okay. Well, here's what he says, the reluctant investor's lament. He says, I hesitate to make a list of the countless deals I miss, bonanzas that were in my grip, but I watch them through my fingers slip. The windfalls which I should have bought, were lost because I overthought. I thought of this, I thought of that. I could have sworn I smelled a rat. And while I thought things over twice, another grabbed them at the price. It seems I always hesitate and make up my mind when it's much too late. A very cautious man am I, and that is why I never buy. So you don't want to be this guy. When Tucson was cheap desert land, I could have had a heap of sand. When Phoenix was the place to buy, I thought the climate was much too dry. Invest in Dallas, that's the spot. But my sixth sense warned me I should not, and that is why I never buy. How Nassau, how Suffolk grew, North Jersey, Staten Island too. We don't invest in those areas. They're not landlord friendly, but it's just an example, okay? When others called those sprawling farms and welcome deals with open arms, a corner here, 10 acres there, compounding values year by year, I chose to think, and as I thought, they bought the deals I should have bought. The golden chances I had then are lost and will not come again. Today I cannot be enticed, for everything in 1977 is so overpriced. The deals of yesteryear are dead, the market's soft and so's my head. At times a teardrop drowns my eye for the deals I had but did not buy. And now life's saddest words I pen, if only I'd invested then. Don't let that be you. Happy investing, folks.
Thank you.
We're going to be taking a break so you can network with our fabulous vendors. Please keep in mind we do have vendors in the foyer too, so please go visit Jason, More Financial, Home Investors, and the wonderful vendors here as well. Thank you.
And the break's gonna
Our